This is what I love about Canada.
Man, when Rick Mercer gets on a roll, he can tell us things about ourselves that we didn't know.
Yes, we are apathetic, but the minute anyone tries to use our apathy against us, suddenly we start to care big time.
And it's that insight and talent that have made him a star on 22 Minutes, and now, of course, the Rick Mercer Report.
We all know an election is coming at some point, don't we? That's making you cry. Hell, that's making me cry. Life is too short to cry.
But Rick does more than just talk. At this point, he's logged more kilometers than the Canada Arm, traveling the country, talking to Canadians, even putting some of our most beloved national icons
It's the man in motion.
in mortal danger.
I can't feel my legs!
And sometimes, Rick just gets angry.
It's no longer good enough for us to tell kids who are different that it's gonna get better.
Like when he stood up for Jamie Hubley, the Ottawa teen who took his own life after being bullied relentlessly, in part, for being gay. It's one of the topics Rick opens up about in his new book. It's called A Nation Worth Ranting About. And he's talking about this nation, my friends.
Everybody, please welcome Rick Mercer. Hey, bud. Nice to see you, young man.
As always.
Welcome.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
I am well.
Our new season, your new season, a new parliamentary season.
I know, it's all happening at once. Year 10 for me.
You're 10.
People do less time for murder. But I've never been so psyched about a season. I've never, you know, we've shot a few segments in prepping for the new season. I've never been so happy. There's a new book out. Everything is happening at once. It's very good.
A nation worth ranting about?
Yes. Because it is.
It's your so there's some classic material in here, and also some new essays you put in there as well,
Yeah,
right?
the book is it's a collection of the rants, which is, you know, the commentary I do every week on the show, and so it's a collection of those over the last number of years, and then some stuff I've written specifically about you know, new stuff, and then also I wrote some essays about some of the rants that kind of took on a life of their own after they appeared on the TV show.
You know, and I want to get into that in a second. One thing that happens as you get older for many people is certainty can fade. So
Oh, are you kidding me? I used to be, once upon a time, everything was black or white. You could throw any situation at me, and I would immediately have the answer, and I would immediately have the solution, and now everything is just a sea of gray. That's it. It gets harder and harder to call, but that's the luxury of being an angry young man, and I was an angry young man. Now I'm not so angry, and also I'm more confused.
Right. So how does one rant?
I'm a confused middle-aged man now.
How does one rant?
Well, thank God I'm still angry, George. That's never going away. Anger is still my cardio. That's how I stay alive, yeah.
Some of those rants you're talking about that took on a life of their own, you had this really powerful when you came on our show and talked about it as well, when you said it's time now for gay people of public profile to come out. This is, you know, dealing with Jamie Hubley and so much other things, right?
That was a unique rant because I always endeavor to be funny in a rant. And sometimes I'm not, but it's not intentional. But when Jamie Hubley, which was a young man who took his own life in Ottawa, I decided to rant about that, and it just wasn't a subject that lent itself to any kind of humorous tact, and that just wasn't the way I was feeling that week, and it was one of those rants that just came out fully formed. And then it took on a life of its own. I mean, it aired on the show, and if I ever had to choose a rant that would go viral, it would be that one, because it was one that I was pretty passionate about. But it was an odd situation.
I can imagine it would be. And so there are people who came out afterwards and said, no, you shouldn't say that.
People got angry, and the Globe and Mail got angry. Lots of people got angry because they thought I was flirting dangerously with the notion of outing people, and I never was. So all I can say is, well, that's not what I was talking about. But I understand people get very nervous about these things, and I can again, everything is gray. I understand their point of view, and but it was wrong. But I understand all the same.
I agree with you.
And they don't have a show, so you know.
So you can get away with it.
Yeah.
Is the country different 10 years later?
Well, I know the country better. I always felt that I knew it pretty well, but you know, I have not stopped in 10 years, and you know, my cameraman pointed out to me that last year in 1 week we shot me standing up doing an intro to a segment we did. In 3 segments, I stood on 3 oceans in 1 week, and not a lot of people get to do that.
No.
And so I know it better, and I love it more and more, and I realize I'm so privileged to do that. Most people can't, you know, but I get angry when people from the East are like, you know, crapping on the West. I get angry because it's my West too, and vice versa. Like if I'm out West and people, you know, are talking about the East and making these grand pronunciations, it's like I get angry. I feel I have ownership in every single part of the country, and I wish more people would.
Let's go to a time and place.
Oh no!
When we played this, what do you think?
What's that?
There you go. The wonderful grand man, right?
Yeah. Wow, yeah. Well, The Wonderful Grand Band was a TV show that it ran nationally very briefly, but it was a provincial, back when CBC did, you know, regional programming. And it was the TV show that was on. It was a weekly comedy. It was a band fronted by Ron Hines, the great Ron Hines, one of Newfoundland's greatest songwriters. And the comedians were Tommy Sexton and Greg Malone. And they were superstars. They were so big. You would get, you know, literally the streets would be empty when The Wonderful Grand Band was on. The ratings were higher for The Wonderful Grand Band than they were for Dallas, right? So the biggest superstars, TV stars in my universe when I was a kid, they were Newfoundlanders, and they lived down the street. Right. And that had such a huge impact on me because it wasn't a crazy notion to wanna create, you know, comedy and do comedy about Newfoundland, from Newfoundland, work on TV, because the biggest stars in the universe were down the street.
And you wanted to be a star.
Well, I wanted to do what they were doing. Like, literally, I was that 7-year-old going, that should be me in there, dressed up as that nun. That should be me. I just loved it. I loved it more than anything you could ever imagine.
Do you still write the rant alone?
Yeah, and sometimes you'll see me. I write them in this building because I find at home there's too many distractions. And so you can see me late on a Thursday night wandering around the halls of this building, sometimes talking to myself.
Looking for something to say.
Frightening cleaning staff and stuff, yeah.
Stick around, more with Rick Mercer right after this.
Also still to come, Rick has his thoughts on Canada, and so does he. Colin Mockery.
What do Canadians love? Canadian music and hydroponics.
We've brought together some funny people to talk about 3 things about Canada.
Let's talk about your new show.
Okay. All right. What's it called?
It's called The Hour.
The Hour. Okay. And it's an hour?
It's an hour, yes.
Okay. Every night?
Well, Monday to Thursday, yes. When you CBC or see each other in public, do you? Is it like the Stonecutters? You're part of a club?
We have a secret handshake.
You do? What is it?
I can't show you yet. Sorry. Not until you're on the air.
That was a long time ago.
That was when you came into CBC.
Yeah, that was our first season and your second season of the
and
show.
we went and threw stuff off the atrium.
That's
and
right,
caused all sorts of trouble. I remember there was memos flying around.
It was fun.
Good. That was a good time.
What is the handshake now? That's pretty weird. That's all right.
Mansbridge taught me that, yeah.
Mansbridge is kind of he is the man in this building, no doubt. One thing that's changed on your show is that you don't have as many politicians on.
Once upon a time in Canada, there were these cabinet ministers, for example, you know, that were larger-than-life creatures. They roamed the country. They had big personalities. They had ideas. They were never, you know, afraid to share an opinion. And we don't have that anymore. I think right now most people would be hard-pressed to say who the Minister of Natural Resources is. That they don't know who that guy is, and they don't know who the Minister of Health is. These people they're muzzled. And you know, I don't know if you've interviewed someone with a muzzle, but it's not that interesting.
I have. It's actually quite terrible.
You know, it's tough. You know, they every morning their BlackBerry goes off and they get a couple of paragraphs what they're allowed to say on a certain issue, and past that there's nothing there. So it just kind of bores me.
Because you guys do great jokes and you're obviously great writers and you put them in fun situations, do you ever feel like you're being exploited by a politician to look good for the photo op?
Well, I always described it as a mutually parasitic relationship. You know, I would have them on the show. They, you know, and yeah, we were both benefiting. And I don't want anyone to come on the show and feel bad about the appearance. And I always tell them they won't. And it's never happened. I don't ambush people. It's pretty straightforward, but I'm giving them an opportunity to maybe, you know, show the country a side of themselves that they're not that used to, and that sometimes involves stepping outside of their comfort zone. I mean, Tom Mulcair, I strapped him to a zip line that is Starts at the top of a mountain in Newfoundland, and you had to take 10 of them to get down. Oh. Not like one, 10 of them. Big, huge zip lines. Like, that's when you get to know a guy. The look on his face when he realized you couldn't leave after one was hysterical.
What's on your premiere?
The premiere is something that you semi-inspired because you sent me a picture of you, you know, doing the water jetpack.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Flyboarding, they call it,
I went to go to Arizona to see the London Bridge, and I saw a jetpacker, and I emailed you a photo of that.
Yeah. And so I thought, who does this? And there's these people in Sylvan Lake, Alberta, and I went, and you put these things on your feet, and it hooks up to the back of a jet ski, and it shoots water out of your feet, and then you fly around like Iron Man.
That's incredible, right?
You really fly around like Iron Man. It's one of the most exciting things I've ever done in my life.
So, who scares you?
That's one of those personal conversations. Yes. You know what scares me? What scares me is a politician who will look into the camera and lie with impunity and know they're getting away with it. That scares me.
Do you come across a lot of those?
Yeah, of course I do. When I turn on the news every night, it terrifies me that people get away with it.
Okay, a nation worth ranting about. Great to see you, man.
Thanks, George.
No pleasure.
Thank you.
Rick Mercer Report, Season 10 premieres tomorrow night. You don't want to miss it. It's at 8 o'clock. We'll be right back. That's funny.
This is what I love about Canada.
Man, when Rick Mercer gets on a roll, he can tell us things about ourselves that we didn't know.
Yes, we are apathetic, but the minute anyone tries to use our apathy against us, suddenly we start to care big time.
And it's that insight and talent that have made him a star on 22 Minutes, and now, of course, the Rick Mercer Report.
We all know an election is coming at some point, don't we? That's making you cry. Hell, that's making me cry. Life is too short to cry.
But Rick does more than just talk. At this point, he's logged more kilometers than the Canada Arm, traveling the country, talking to Canadians, even putting some of our most beloved national icons,
The man in motion,
in mortal danger.
I can't feel my season, a new parliamentary season.
I know, it's all happening at once. Year 10 for me.
Year 10.
People do less time for murder. But I've never been so psyched about a season. I've never, you know, we've shot a few segments in prepping for the new season. I've never been so happy. There's a new book out. Everything is happening at once.
Thanks.
And sometimes, Rick just gets angry.
It's no longer good enough for us to tell kids who are different that it's gonna get better.
Like when he stood up for Jamie Hubley, the Ottawa teen who took his own life after being bullied relentlessly, in part, for being gay. It's one of the topics Rick opens up about in his new book. It's called A Nation Worth Ranting About, and he's talking about this nation, my friends.
Everybody, please welcome Rick Mercer. Hey, bud.
Hello.
Nice to see you, young man.
As always.
Welcome.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
I am well.
A new, our new season, your new